Hey there, I'm getting ready to plant some of my first seeds to go into my garden this year, and that is some cool season crops, and I thought it'd be fun to bring you along today. So I'm going to share with you my seed starting process for many of these crops like lettuce, broccoli, cabbage, and a couple of others, and I'll also explain why I chose the varieties I did and also how it fits into my overall garden plan. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my seed starting mix. Sometimes I just sift out potting mix, but I had a little bit of extra seed starting mix if you remember from a video back in the fall where I was doing some tests on different seed starting mix. But the Jiffy organic seed starting mix was a mix that I had used from the time I was a beginning gardener. It's always been a really good, stable choice for me. But one thing that I do is I need to moisten the mix. That's the first thing that I want to do. Now I've got some water in here, it's not completely full, but I think it'll be enough. And what I like to do is I like to add some organic rev to the water. Organic rev is really great with seed starting, and some people actually soak their seeds in organic rev, but I find that it's just as effective to add it to the water when I'm actually moistening. And then I'll also water with it a couple of times during the growing season before it actually goes out into the garden. What I'm trying to do is just get this mix thoroughly moist. The reason I like to moisten my seed starting mix is because when you're planting the seed, if the water isn't already in the mix, sometimes the seed will get dislodged when you're watering it. And I find that starting with a moistened mix means that it's easier to plant the seed and also to ensure that the seed won't go anywhere when you water it. The next thing I'm going to do is start filling up my seed trays. I love using these Epic cell trays. They are sturdy and I can use them from season to season. And I just fill them up. I used to use soil blocks for all of this, and I found that this is actually a lot quicker. And with these Epic cell trays, they have the slits down the side, and that enables the root pruning benefits that you get with soil blocks to actually happen in a tray, in a container. And I find that I can regulate the water better by using this compared to soil blocks. So that's why I'm not using soil blocks with these this year. The next thing I'm going to do is consult my garden planner. I've already decided how many of each variety that I want to plant today. I'm using the indoor seed starting log, and it makes it really easy to know exactly how many seeds I'm going to plant and exactly which varieties I'm going to plant. So I'm going to use that as a reference here. And the ones I'm going to start out with today are going to be broccoli. The varieties that I'm going to grow are going to be two varieties that have been very reliable for me, especially in my southern climate where we get hot really fast, and that is Green Magic and Castle Dome. Both of these have been great. These Green Magic seeds came from Johnny's. The Castle Dome came from Park Seed. And it looks like I'm going to be doing 6 Green Magic. They are the most reliable that I've had, so I want to plant a little bit more of those. To help with planting, I'm going to use this little dipper that my husband bought me. So I'm going to start out just putting a little bit of a divot in each of these. I'm only going to plant 2 seeds per cell because ultimately I only want 1 plant per cell, and I will thin out to the strongest one once they germinate and start growing. And the next thing I do, I just usually use my fingers to pull the soil over the seed. And this next step is optional, but it's something that I've found has been really helpful for me in indoor seed starting, and that is to sprinkle the top with some vermiculite. Vermiculite, I have found, helps to prevent the fungus gnats from laying their eggs. These will not stay out in the greenhouse initially. They're going to go under grow lights. I just like to plant in my greenhouse because it's a sunny day and it's winter and I have more space, and it also makes it where I don't have to get my house dirty. But another thing this does is it helps regulate water. So if I accidentally water too much, the vermiculite prevents mold buildup at the top, which I find sometimes can happen if we're too overzealous in our watering. Next thing I'm going to do is label. Okay, the next one we have is Castle Dome. And I'm going to do 4 Castle Domes. So do 1, 2, 3, 4. The next variety that I'm going to be planting is actually the next 2 are brand new to me. I bought both of these from Territorial Seed Company, and it's always fun to try different varieties. These two in particular I chose for a specific reason. I've got Jacaranda, which is a compact broccoli that, I believe this is the one that's supposed to have purple tinged heads. So I thought that would be fun to try a purple headed broccoli. I've never done that before. And then I've got Gemini, which is also supposed to be a more compact broccoli. Now, the reason that I chose these two is because I'm going to be putting broccoli in my kitchen garden where I don't have a ton of space. And so I thought I would experiment to see how these compact varieties end up doing. And one thing that I've noticed, let's start with the Gemini here. One thing I've noticed with compact varieties is that they tend to harvest a little earlier, even if they're a little smaller. And that's always good in a spring garden with broccoli because we tend to get hot really fast and our broccoli will bolt really quickly in part of the summer, actually later part of the spring. So if I can get these to head up sooner, then hopefully I'll have a little bit more success with that. So we just did Gemini. So I'm doing 2 seeds per cell, but I'm also planting 2 more plants than I need just in case there's some kind of issue, one of them dies, or I don't know, anything can happen. So I'm actually planting double the amount of seeds I need per cell, not any more than that, and then double the amount of plants I need for my garden space. And I do have a few extra spaces that I haven't earmarked for different things. So I thought if more of these end up sprouting, especially the compact varieties, I may see about trying a couple of these in my green stalk. I've never tried broccoli in the green stalk, but if I have extras, then I may end up doing that. All right, we've got the broccoli planted. Next, I'm going to move on to cabbage. I'm only planting 1 cabbage variety because this one has been my absolute favorite, and it's called Farrow. I grow it in the spring, I grow it in the fall, and I love that it's a little bit more compact, but the heads are really dense. Have you ever cut up a cabbage or cut into a cabbage and you have all these leaves, but there's really a lot of open space in the cabbage? This doesn't have that. So even though it's a smaller cabbage, I feel like it gives me more product for the head. So I'm just going to stick with the tried and true on this and not venture out because I just really enjoyed this variety. And even though the seeds, and these are from Johnny's, are not cheap, I think you can get them from Territorial Seed too. Seems like I saw. They last a long time. The next thing I'm going to plant is lettuce. Now lettuce is really interesting because I'm only planting 3 varieties right now because I'm going to be succession planting them. Every 2 weeks I'm going to be sowing another 6 or so plants. That way I can have lettuce in continuous succession throughout the spring. The 3 that I'm going to be planting now are Tango, Winter Density, and Cherokee. So the Tango I'm choosing because it is very cold tolerant. It's probably the most cold tolerant lettuce I've had, even better than Winter Density. So I'm going to plant it now because we're at the end of January, so any kind of resistance to cold is going to be helpful. The other one I'm going to plant is Winter Density because it's the other one, and it has a little bit different texture. The Tango is definitely more of a frilly texture, and the Winter Density is more like your basic leaf lettuce. And this one will be Winter Density. Winter Density is a romaine. Usually with lettuce I plant a few more than 2, partly because the seeds are so small, but partly just to make sure they can germinate, because in my opinion lettuce is a little bit more fussy when it comes to germination than some of the other crops I've planted. And the final variety of lettuce is a new one for me, and this is called Cherokee. This is a red lettuce. I'm still looking for a red lettuce that I love, and I keep trying different ones. The Cherokee I chose because it's supposed to be more bolt resistant, which I found is a little bit harder to find in red lettuces. And this one has a 48 days to maturity. I bought another red lettuce too, but it only has 38 days of maturity, so I'm going to wait to plant that in a couple of weeks. That way I can get a head start on this Cherokee variety. All right, we've got the lettuces planned. Next will be the celery. And the celery I'm going to be planting will be Tango and Kelvin. These are 2 varieties that did fantastic for me last year. I'm doing 6 Kelvin and 12 Tango. I don't really know why I chose to do more Kelvin, or more Tango. I think it's because I've grown it for a couple of years, and last year Kelvin was my first time. But let's go ahead and start with Kelvin. Celery seeds are tiny, so it's so easy to overplant, and they take a while to germinate. So I do tend to do a little bit more than 2, probably more like 4, just to make sure. And they're so tiny, I don't want to plant them very deep at all. The smaller the seed, the more surface level you want to plant it. The reason I'm planting so many celery plants is because I do like to be able to freeze them, dehydrate them to use year round. Celery is one of the crops that's consistently on the Dirty Dozen list for being sprayed with pesticides and all sorts of things. I honestly have not found it to have any issues with pests, so I'm not really sure the reason behind that, but that just makes it more encouraging for me to grow. The key with my garden being in the south is getting it started early enough so it can produce before it gets too hot, because then it can get a little bit kind of chewy and bitter, just a little bit. Have to harvest it early in the season. And vermiculite is so light, it's so easy for the plants to just push through the soil and through the vermiculite. A little bit goes a long way. Okay, got the celery. Next I'm gonna be doing 2 herbs, and that is parsley and feverfew. I usually buy parsley at the garden center just because it just takes so long to grow from a seed. But this year I just decided, hey, let's try growing some from seed again. It's been years since I've done that. And hopefully it'll eventually save me money in the long run, because for the price of 1 plant at the garden center, I can get a packet of seeds that'll hopefully last quite a while. And the final one I'm gonna plant is feverfew. It's been a while since I've grown feverfew. It's actually a very powerful medicinal herb, and I've used it for that purpose. But the main reason that I'm growing it is because I love the way it looks. It's just gorgeous. It's kind of similar to chamomile, although the flowers are a little bit bigger than chamomile is. And it lasts longer in the heat. Chamomile does not like the heat. And also, feverfew can either be perennial. I can't remember if it was perennial for me or if it just self-sowed so easy. But I had it for multiple years and I loved it, and then they just ended up dying out. Probably I overcrowded it with something else, but I wanted to grow it again just because it is so pretty. And if I ever want to use it for medicinal use, I have it. That's it for the indoor seed starting today. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'll take this into my grow room. I'll put it under grow lights. I'll also add a humidity dome on the top of all of this. I actually don't have it in here. It's inside the grow room. And what I suspect will happen is the broccoli and the cabbage and the lettuce, they're going to sprout sooner than the celery and the parsley and the feverfew. So once they sprout, I'll take the humidity dome off, and then I'm really excited about this. It's a new product from Epic Gardening. It's individual humidity domes, and what I'll do is I'll just put these under those individual humidity domes so they can still have the moisture retaining properties that a humidity dome does, without having to risk fungal problems if I kept it on the other sprouts, if that makes sense. For right now though, I'll put the big humidity dome on, put it under lights, and then we'll adjust as I go. I don't know about you, but I have sure enjoyed being able to be outside on this sunny day, even though it's quite cold outside, just to be able to plant some of my first crops of the season and just get excited about the upcoming growing season. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like following along with me with what I'm doing in my garden in real time, be sure to comment and let me know, and also give me any suggestions, any other varieties that you like that I am not growing of any of these. I'm always open to trying out new varieties. I hope you are having a great day and maybe you can get out and start doing some seed starting when it's the right time for your garden, and I will see you on the next video.